Good morning. Lisa's here this morning, and I was trying to scratch in my head trying to figure out what I'd talk about, and mentioned to her that something about Frank Craig, and that nobody in town really knew who the hell he was. Some of the older people do, but Frank Craig was the person that wrote Topsham sketches in 1926 or 7, something like that. He originally, I have some facts here. He was born in Illinois, somewhere here. And here he was born in Stark County, Illinois, April 10th, 1860. So, and he died somewhere around in the late 30s. I'm not sure exactly when. I could find that out, but he had a lot of relatives here in the town of Topsham. His mother and father were both, well, his father was a Fellows. His mother, no, his father was a Craig, of course, but his mother was Mary Fellows. So that ties him into Topsham pretty heavy. The Craig's family had quite a lot to do with Reigate, but anyway, his aunt was Mildred Berry, Mildred Craig. She married Arnold Berry, and you know, almost everybody knows about Arnold Berry. He had the store down here where Renee owns down there now. It used to be Hassie and Ed's. That years back didn't belong to Arnold Berry. He leased it from Texaco, but he was
the East Corinth General Store.
Yeah, East Corinth General Store. So anyway, he taught school out there in Illinois until he retired, and then he came back up here to spend summers with his aunt Mildred, and he built a log cabin right there, right beside their house. And I think it's still standing. I'm not sure. I haven't been up there for a long time to see, but it was standing. Just a simple log cabin, but that's kind of where he was thinking. He liked the colonial times, and so he spent his time in that cabin, working on that cabin. He had other structures strung off up through the woods. There was a building just above that log cabin that was like a shed or something. I don't know whether he built it or Arnold built it, but looked like he built it. And then out in the Swab Stick there was a couple other buildings. There was one that was really kind of, I don't know what the hell it was doing where it was, and then there was one way out. If you come in by Harold Osmer's, or where he lived, come in, there's a road in there, and there's all kinds of houses up in there now. I think there's a house just about right where that cabin used to sit. That was just a rough cabin out of boards, probably 8 by 10 or something, not even that, maybe 6 by 10 or 6 by 8. That was just a place for him to get in. He was a naturalist, and he loved wildlife, and he was a botanist and all that. So he had that place. Then he had a little stove in there, I guess, a little chimney. And he'd spend some time up there. It was probably a mile from where he lived. Maybe not quite, but quite a ways up through there. And I kind of found that when I was a kid and kind of took it over. Bill Morrison and I kind of adopted it, and later on Mike Batten and I used to go up there. We'd spend the night up there or something. Had a place to go that we kind of thought was sort of ours, even though it wasn't, belonged to Arnold. Arnold owned a lot of property up in there, owned a lot of that Swab Stick country. He got it, I don't think he bought it. I think maybe his dad bought it, or somebody bought it really cheap back in the day when you could get land for 25 cents an acre or something. But anyway, he lived, well, gosh, how can I explain this? Well, if you knew Arnold Berry and you knew where he lived in Waits River, it's right there. Now, that Gary guy that deals in antiques lives there. He's got, if you go across the Waits River Bridge and start to go up the hill, but you take that drive that goes up, that splits off and goes to Richardson's or goes right straight to this, where Arnold Berry used to live. That's where he lived, right there. And my mother was living with her parents back in the 20s. I mean, she was born in 21, I think, so she wasn't very old. But they lived where Sheila Herman does now. And so she knew Frank Craig when she was a child, quite well, as a matter of fact. And so she used to tell me about him a lot. So that's how I kind of got fascinated with him, is that he wasn't just an author, he was somebody that lived there in Waits River, certainly in the summers. I don't think he did much in the winters. I think he went back to Illinois. You couldn't heat that cabin he was in, that's for sure. But he decided somewhere, since he was a teacher, he decided somewhere in the line there that he'd write a history of the town of Topsham, which is quite an undertaking for somebody that didn't grow up there, but he knew how to do that stuff, research it all out, did a wonderful job. But I have a copy of the autobiography of Frank Craig that says here, presented to my, well, it'd be my grandfather, great-grandfather, Ernest V. Batten, on his 64th birthday by the author. And I've got his picture here somewhere. This was done in '35. Okay, so I found the picture of the author Frank Craig, and I'll hold it up there so you can see it. Yeah, attractive enough guy. So let's see, he was born in 1860, so in 1935, he was 75 at that point, so he was getting on up there. What else did I want? So anyway, I was mentioning that he was basically, I think his grandmother was a Dickey. So I have this copy of A Dickey Family Reunion on Mount Adam. That was up in, they did that up in Reigate, I'm sure. And also, here's a book, The Fellows, Craig Fellows and Allied Families, which is quite a, kind of interesting. I don't know why I've got it marked here. Kind of interesting. This book was signed by Charles Disney in 1919. And then Charles, it's something about Spooner in 1947, but the Disneys and Spooners lived right there around where, well, they at one time lived where my folks did and where Sheila Herman does now. And then there's a little house just up the road from Partington's, just within a rock throw of Sheila Herman's place. They lived there, the Spooners. So he was, like I say, he was tied really in tightly with Topsham's early settlers. So he was qualified for certain to do this Topsham Sketches book. He did several other books. One was he did the autobiography of Frank Craig. He also did Verses by Frank Craig, which is a book of poems. And he did some other ones. This is the Topsham Sketches book. So, anyway, I don't know how long it took him to write this book, do this book, but there's a lot of information in here, and it's a really, really cool book. This particular copy, I remember I bought it from Alfred Macklin when he was having a lawn sale over there in East Corinth Village. They just moved up the road from the store there, so he was having a lawn sale, and I stopped by, and it's signed by Eunice Macklem, which probably was his mother or something, I don't know. So I've got several copies of this that I hoarded over the years.
And to be clear, none of these books are for sale, correct?
No, I've given a couple away. I remember when my mother, at my mother's funeral, I gave a copy to Candy Dexter Ricker, the pastor at the time. She did the service, so I asked her if she had a copy, and she says, no, I didn't get it. My family copy went to her brother, so I said, well, so I gave her a copy. It was nice because she really appreciated it, and it was something I could do for her that meant something to her. So anyway, I guess I've just about said what I'm going to say.
Do you want to read a poem?
I do. I'm going to read a poem, but I was just going to say, they did come out with this Topsham Sketches too, which incorporates everything of the first book and then an update, more modern part of it, and then there's an update to the genealogy, which is Topsham Sketches 2 genealogy, and I think you could still get them over to the town clerk's office. I know you could a few years back. They were, $40 or something. Okay, so
I will note they have my middle name wrong and a couple of other things wrong, but
don't be bitter.
I think it has me as Lisa Marie.
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
No,
well,
I am not Lisa Marie.
Well, that's not a bad tie-in, it could be a Presley. You never know.
I don't think so.
Okay, so he was a prolific writer, and he wrote a lot of poems. So I thought I'd just go through and get one here and read it to you. It's not very long, so don't go to sleep or walk away. This is by Frank Craig. Don't know when it was written, but it's in his book of poems. It's called March, which is appropriate. March is a month of changes, of winds, of rain, and of cold. What else would be expected? Old winter is losing his hold. He's on his way to the north, carrying his ice and the snow. 'Tis a joy for us to know it. He surely is going, but slow. The birds will follow him closely. They will sing in the trees above. The sun and the rain together will bring the flowers we love. 'Tis easy to keep one's courage this dreary month of the year, for April and May are coming. They are now on the way and near, which is comforting thought. So I guess that's it. But now you know a little bit about Frank Craig that you probably didn't know or didn't care you knew. Bye.